All right, how's it going, everyone? So today we have Joe Hollier, and we're going to be starting the live stream in just a second. He's here. Um,
Cool.
we have Joe
It's
here.
getting
How's
very
it going, Joe?
close. Step back.
Give me a second. I think I'm hearing you out of the wrong. Right here. Perfect. That should be good. All right. Maybe I can put on headphones. That'll make it easier. But I can hear you now.
Testing,
Okay.
testing.
Yes, testing. It works. Here, let me post the link real quick on the community so that people know. Everyone, are live streaming. And now, all right, let's see how people react and coming and everything that they need to do. So, how's it been, Joe, for you and the company? How are things going? Tell us a little bit about that.
Things are going. Yeah, it's been a great start to the new year. Rolling out updates and just tackling this long list of things we've been eager to get to. So
awesome. That's good to hear. Also, for those of you watching and those of you kind of starting to come, if you have any questions for Joe, make sure to put them in the chat. We'll go over them as much as we can. I already have some questions that people have asked on the Reddit thread, and we'll go through those as well. But yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation. Joe, why don't we start on, tell us a little bit more about the survey, the review, kind of like the last year's survey. You guys ended up with like an end of the year survey. Tell us about some of your findings, some of the things that you guys found out about the light phone, and what are people more interested in?
yeah, I mean, I think the primary goal of the survey was just to help us prioritize. I think there's a bucket list that we have of things that we all agree or have heard from enough users that we think make sense. But in terms of which ones should we action first and what makes the most sense, the survey was hugely helpful in understanding, exactly if given 3 options out of this list of 20 features, which ones would you like to see? And I think that proved to be really successful for us. And so it wasn't necessarily like an overwhelmingly new insight in any way, but it was a lot of clarity in terms of, oh wow, my gut was that this was more important than that, and seeing that in fact users really wanted this. So that's been really interesting and definitely kind of been dictating. Oh, I kind of like the wide one, but no, this is good too. It's all fine. So that's been helping dictate, our current software priority list. I think, we still had some things we were wrapping up from the end of last year. So we haven't, fully dove into all of those features, but it's exciting. And I think, just even with the last update, we're addressing things that I think are going to make the phone more usable for more people. And, I think that's really the goal with any of these features. It's not about expanding the phone into something it wasn't before. It's just about those little moments of friction and trying to alleviate as much of those as possible.
Absolutely. We have some questions coming in the chat, and we'll get to them, guys. Do you mind sharing with us, like, hey, what was the number one? What was the top, like, people were like kind of converging and saying, yeah, this moment of friction is something that we want to fix? Was it more like bug fixes, or was it like a new feature that people were asking for?
I mean, I think we didn't ask as much about the bug fixes because we're so aware of them and we tally a lot of that from the support inbox and obviously our own experiences. So I think those were kind of, something we're constantly going to be addressing. I think it was about, whether we explore this new feature or that new feature and how to prioritize, some of the new tools and stuff. And I think Notes tool was like an overwhelming winner. And so, that's something that I've already gotten pretty great progress on the Notes tool. And, I could talk to some of the specifics of, the Notes upgrade, the alarm upgrade. That was another big one. So that's already pretty far along and probably should be coming in, if not the next update, a near future one. So I'd say, notes and alarm were two really big ones. I'm blanking off the top of the exact survey things, but where our software list is kind of going is that we got the custom podcast in. I know that was a big one. The notes tool, call waiting, Wi-Fi calling, copy paste, and forward text. Those were all pretty high as well. So those are on our next to come as well.
Well, it's good to hear. I know that you guys just released a massive update, update 294, and it had a little bug, and you guys fixed it with 296 pretty quickly. And it's exciting to see. I can tell you from my experience on this latest update, my favorite feature is that the podcast tool doesn't time out on the on the screen anymore. It's big for me. When I'm listening, I was literally on an hour walk before this, and as I was walking my dog, we're just walking, and I was like, man, this is so nice. I can pause it, do whatever I have to do with the dog, and then I can come back to it without timing out. So it was a great change, and the links now coming to the email, right? So pictures, whenever somebody sends me pictures, it already comes to my email. And now that the links come to my email, that's even better if I had to check something quick. So I'm really excited about the future and about what you guys are building.
Two little points on those specific features, and I also personally find those to be incredibly helpful in my use. The first one with the stop button and the not timeout, that was directly inspired by conversations on Reddit about that feature. So, that was really cool because it was like almost thinking out loud. And, it took a month or two before we actually executed it. But, I thought we came up with a really good idea with a couple back and forths. So, I think thanks for everyone for constantly sharing their feedback. It definitely doesn't go unnoticed. And, the email links feature has been awesome. And I think in addition to copy and paste, we just call it that. It's actually copy, paste, forward is how we're thinking of it. And so the idea is that when we roll out that functionality, you'd be able to click any message in a conversation, copy it, paste it into a composed message, and then also forward it. If you didn't want to copy it, you could just have that directly forward. Because people started asking, well, can I forward every message? And in theory, the mechanism's already there. So it's pretty easy for us to offer some settings around forwarding.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I mean, as I always say to everyone, right, if you're watching and you are interested in the community, right, specifically for the light phone, there is a Reddit and there's a Discord for light phones. So if you're interested in, chatting and talking about maybe different features or whatever, I'm going to put the link for the Discord here in just a second so that you guys have it ready, have it handy. It's on the chat. If you're into Discord and you want to do that, so essentially, those are some of the things to stay aware of. But yes, Reddit, Discord, they're available there. Joe is there from time to time answering questions or giving feedback, everything that is necessary. Joe, let's start with a couple of the questions that people have. If you have any, I know you were maybe planning to share a little bit of the vision. If you want to share that now, it's fine with me. But if you want to go to the questions, that's okay too.
No, I figured I'd err away from probably sharing the visuals, but happy to talk through some of those features. Maybe I could do that really quickly.
Go ahead.
Some of the near-term things that we've been working on. The podcast RSS feed, we got in the dashboard. We put it in the OS. We saw that it wasn't compatible with every platform. We expanded that compatibility with the last OS update, and we're going to push a dashboard side update. I don't think it requires a phone side. That should make even more links accessible.
Nice.
A lot of users sent links that weren't working, and we dove in and we realized that it was a common, I'm not using the right technical, but there's a common reason why they weren't finding it. And so hopefully this one change will expand that. The hotspot as a tool, that was a pretty simple one. So that should be coming in a future update. And, the hotspot's still going to live in the settings for people that just need it more occasionally. But, users that were heavily relying on hotspot had been asking for that. So that's one we were able to get in. I believe the podcast settings will be coming soon too. And that's, adding the settings, and then we can start, continuing to add to that settings page. I know we've heard a lot about, not auto playing the next episode as an immediate one.
Yes.
So that's, I think, the first setting and maybe the only setting that will be there initially. But ongoing, we can add other settings, whether it's how the episodes are sorted chronologically, which way, and what other features. And I think, podcasts, there's a lot of perpetual improvements that we see on the dashboard side as well for managing episodes and whatnot. But some of those may be a little bit more long term. One of our developers has been upgrading the music tool in the background, the mechanisms for how it queues uploading and deleting. We've seen some bugs, not terribly common, but it's just been on our back burner to kind of upgrade that system. So hopefully that should work a little bit more smoothly. Someone's been investigating the toolbox duplicate bug, and I think we have a fix for that. And that seems to be related to the reordering feature that we rolled out, where once you start reordering the tools, adding and removing them a lot, we're starting to see some inconsistencies. So hopefully we worked out that one. There may be some other bugs in that toolbox stuff, but in addition, we're also going to allow you to rearrange the settings. I know that was something we heard for some people. The alarm tool I mentioned briefly, we're going to have some upgrades, most notably multiple alarms at once. So changing the interface once you set an alarm is going to be a little different. There'll be a plus sign now, and you can keep adding different alarms. There'll be a settings icon for the alarm tool, so you can change things like the volume and if there's other future settings. And then there'll be a repeat toggle on specific alarms. So if you wanted an alarm to repeat every day, you could toggle that setting. And then the notes tool, we've been working on that a lot. And the notes tool is going to basically encompass a voice memo and a text-based notes kind of in one feed. You'll be able to create a new note, whether that's, texting / voice to text, using the keyboard on the phone, or recording audio, like, a simple voice memo that would sync with the dashboard. So you'd be able to view all your notes, download them or edit them from the dashboard. You'd also be able to create text-based notes from the dashboard. So, it's a way for people who maybe wanted a little bit of an e-reader-like experience where you could, paste an article, or, I'm not sure the phone would be great for too long form of text, but you could paste things in the dashboard. Maybe it's a to-do list or a reminder for yourself, copying and pasting it from an email, and it would, sync to your phone in that way. So I could see that tool being pretty nifty for a lot of, use cases, music creators in the voice memo, or, other things. So we're pretty excited about the notes tool that's moving alarm. It looks like the alarm will probably happen first. And then kind of unrelated to software, we've been working a lot with our hardware guys on a recycling program, for the phones that are truly dead. And the best way that we can maximize recycling every single component, ideally reusing as many of them as possible, or reselling them to be reused in other phones, as well as enhancing what we can repair locally here in New York. So we made some jigs that allow us to take off the screens much easier, and we've been testing all sorts of what kinds of repairs we are able to handle, and hopefully we may even be able to start selling some of these refurbished phones in different conditions for different price points for users, to maybe make it more accessible if someone's okay without a brand new phone. And obviously, we just don't want to see phones ending up in a landfill as much as possible. So that's sort of been on the back burner and pretty exciting as well.
I think that's a great commitment. And, talking about the price, I know there's a question that's always been asked. It's just like, hey, the price sometimes can be inaccessible to some people because of their different circumstances. And I know you guys have talked about the following, which we have a question from question 747. The 99 light phone year kind of like discount that you guys have been working on. Can you share a little bit more details on that?
We've been thinking we were going to launch it almost any week now. It's been hauled by bureaucratic logistics. There's a lot of audits that have to happen because it requires a credit check process, a very minor one, albeit, but and we haven't wanted to distract too much of our resources. So it's been less on the developer holdback and more on the kind of business and operation side, but we're in the final stages of testing that now. And so hopefully next week or the following week, we may be able to offer that.
Right. That's good to hear. And yeah, I mean, of course, there's some credit involved as always, like, and I assume since it's credit involved, this will only be for North America in the beginning. Is that
Well,
correct?
because it's limited to our service plan, it's limited to the US.
Correct. Very, very true. Very true.
And I guess, it's something we're trying to encourage more people about our service plan. Obviously, there's tons of other options, and right now the light service plan doesn't offer anything incredibly unique in terms of features for a service plan, other than that you can manage it in the dashboard. But we do have some ideas for features we want to roll out, and I think a lot of the users that do use our service plan love knowing that they are supporting our ongoing development, and our ability to keep things like the directions tool free, or voice to text that do have recurring costs. Our service plan subscribing really helps offset a lot of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes with that kind of, I know you mentioned it before, so I just want to kind of go in here. You mentioned, and Jesse asked, is there any chance of dashboard texting will ever happen? Texting on the Light Phone 2 is a challenge for some people that have, big thumbs or something like that. And I know you talked about the possibility of adding that to the service plan, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a complicated scenario how that works. I know, we're kind of used to it from iMessage and some of these other internet-based platforms, but the reality is that the Light Phone uses standard SMS texting. So in order to text, you really have to send it from the phone device itself. You can't just send a text from the dashboard internet to someone's phone as if it was their phone number. We do have an idea for an offering to make that possible, where we, essentially become a cloud number, and your phone would use it and the dashboard. And we're really excited about that, but it would have a cost, of course. So,
Right.
that would be something that we could have as an add-on option for our service plan. There are other ways we could imagine texting from the dashboard if there was a way to mirror your phone on a dashboard, a desktop app. But that would require your phone to be on and connected, because it would really be using the phone as a proxy. But happy to chat more about that, but that might be a hole to go down.
Yeah, no, and I think some people don't mind connecting their phone to the computer. I know some people do. It's kind of like a matter of preferences. Of course, everything being wireless is always better, just because you can access it on the go. You don't have to have a computer with you all the time, or maybe the cable fails, right? The wireless solution is always usually better. Let's step back from the roadmap and some of that. I think this is a very nice question from Matt that kind of talks about the philosophy of Light Phone, and we've touched on this in previous live streams, so guys, make sure to check those. But I think this one is like a short one that kind of lets us get out of that feature mindset and get a little bit more into the core values. So Matt asks, what are the core values for the Light Phone when developing features and tools? What is the criteria for whether something is in development team or something that you guys will put energy into?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, some of our core goals with everything around the Light Phone, Kai and I keep coming back to this word intentionality. And I think everything about the phone is trying to encourage intentional use of technology. You have the Light Phone to be used in this intentional way. And obviously, we have this computer where we're able to do these live streams, and it's not anti-technology. It's coming at technology in a way that's conscious of how we want to be using it, versus pulling out our phone unconsciously to check things because it's our nervous habit. So I think everything about the Light Phone, it also goes back to that kind of designed to be used as little as possible, where it's we don't want someone opening the Light Phone to open a tool to check to see if there's something new. That would be a not great feeling, that feeling of needing to check and recheck. And I think the kind of lines that we've drawn are like, there will not be an internet browser, an email client. There's never going to be any sort of infinite feed or advertisement-based feed, because, those things are built around us just consuming and consuming and consuming. So
Mhm.
even if we were to consider things like, a streaming platform collaboration, we would probably do it in a way that was very intentional and not a full-fledged version with explore pages and discover pages and those kinds of things. It's, I think that's part of the reason why we really like the dashboard, is because you kind of make some of those decisions ahead of time.
Yeah.
It kind of, forces you to be intentional with, I want to listen to this music today. I want to, and so I think intentionality is a huge part of that.
Absolutely. That's good. That's good. There's always a question about this, but let's just kind of like talk about it. And there's two platforms here, so talk about a little bit of the difficulties. The first one is from Jason, WhatsApp support for Light Phone 2, and the second one is for from Cataclysmic, which is any progress on the Signal talks. There's always questions about that. So can you share a little bit more about that?
I mean, there's not very much tangible to share about either of them. I would say, WhatsApp, Signal, obviously the value of being able to internationally text over that kind of, internet-based platform is really useful, and we totally see the need. We feel it ourselves, traveling, having friends abroad. Signal seems much more open to cooperating and a little bit more aligned with the values of Lightphone in the sense of their encryption and open sourced. And, WhatsApp being owned by Facebook is a little bit potentially problematic in that regard. But we also understand that, people talk on, there's the network effect where people are already on WhatsApp. It's hard to get friends and family to switch over platforms. So, we're definitely open ears and still trying to figure out what we may be able to do, but it hasn't been one of our immediate priorities, if I'm being honest. It's kind of been on the back burner. And, we did talk with a variety of different teams at Signal. Even when Moxie was there, we were chatting with him, one of the founders. And unfortunately, to get their official support requires a lot of resources, basically like a full-fledged team to constantly be updating to their highest standards. I know some users have chatted about ways we could get a version of Signal that might work on the phone, but I think, we're interested in hopefully trying to support it in official capacity where, we could have the Signal badge of approval that this is, truly up to standards. Right. But
because you could technically use some of the open source developments that use Signal, because Signal has open source components, right? I think the only close thing that they have nowadays is for their spam, to minimize spam. They created something that was not so open source, but for example, the Punk team uses an open source version, but you want a more official one.
I mean,
to have better support.
We're open to it, but I think, that's at least where we want to start the conversation. And it seems like, the most potentially successful way to do it. But at this time, they basically said we'd need a software team almost twice what our current team is just to focus on Signal. So it just hasn't really been possible. But, we keep that conversation open. Some of our investors know the new CEO, the former WhatsApp founder. And so, if they're ever interested in helping support that, we're, totally open ears. So it's not off the table, but there's nothing tangible that's been really progressed.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for that. We have a question from Not MN that is essentially about the regions and compatibility and availability of the product, right? So will there be any support for other regions? He's from India. I know you guys don't ship right now, but you've talked in the past, like on a one-to-one basis, if people are willing to take the chance, right? Like that you'll be willing to work with them.
Yeah. The countries that we don't support, there's a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's that the shipping is prohibitive with customs and just too many failed or lost packages that it just really, was almost an impossible thing. Sometimes, even though the phone seems technically compatible on paper, the carriers require all sorts of, very specific certifications that, would take time and resources away from our team. For instance, getting Verizon official support was almost $100,000 of testing with private labs and 6-month process. So, Verizon is one of our biggest carriers that our users use, so that was definitely worth it. But it's just been unfortunately hard for our small team to address that for all these different regions. And some regions actually just have antenna networks that aren't fully aligned with either of the models of the light phone, and we might need an additional model with different actual antenna bands to work in that region. So there's a variety of reasons that some places may be incompatible, and we are more conservative when it comes to what we say is compatible. The light phone is actually probably more compatible than what we claim on our website, but we try to test it and have at least a few users on that carrier before we claim it's compatible, to try to mitigate, because it's a terrible experience if someone orders the phone, goes to the carrier, tries with a few hours, and ends up having to send us the phone back. It's expensive and just a bad experience for everyone involved.
Right. No, absolutely. And it's understandable. And I mean, as you become a bigger company and more compatibility, it's open, then, maybe things will be better. Also, I think there was a turbulent period that right now where networks are shutting down, bands are changing, carriers are doing all of these different things. And that always opens up issues. I remember reading from some users in Germany that used to be compatible a couple months ago, but then one of the networks did a big update, and then all of a sudden it wasn't as compatible, or they had to do different things in order to make it work.
As well. Unfortunately, with Rogers in Canada made a kind of silent switch to one of their networks, which kind of kicked off a lot of light phone users. And that was unfortunate because they'd been using the phone for 12 or 18 months without issue, and then all of a sudden calls stopped working.
Right, and it's they have to call or work out, and all of that. So
we're actually trying to get an official certification from some of those carriers in Germany and Canada specifically, so that we can resume shipping there, because we want their badge of, yes, we guarantee the light phone will work.
Perfect. That's good to hear, and it's good to hear that people are interested especially from Canada or Germany. Another question that usually comes up, and I know we've been talking about this for at least a year and a half, is the SDK. So the SDK, opening it up, will solve a lot of the issues for non-OS. What can you share with us about the SDK upcoming?
Yeah, I mean, it's still something we're very interested in. I know we've collected a lot of emails from interested users from our last survey, so that was another really helpful aspect of the survey. I think my next step is to find a forum for us to gather everyone that is interested in that, and to really try to see what makes the most sense. I think, the SDK, as we initially imagined it, was specifically for custom tools that one would be able to add to their toolbox. And, we had these ideas for building out a development environment on the dashboard that would, mimic the light phone, and was really cool, and a way for users to share and, modify each other's tools, like build off and rate, and comment on each other's builds. But that may be less relevant. It turns out a lot of people are interested in actually helping with the light OS side of things, not actually custom tools, but things either on underlying Android or the light OS, which could probably be done in a more open source fashion if we start being able to open source different aspects of the light OS. But both of those things would require a pretty decent amount of resources from our development side. So it has been relatively on the back burner to date, but I think it is something that's still very much on our minds, and I hope we can start, making some progress on that sooner than later. I think what we don't want to do is overbuild this, SDK environment that takes months of our time and isn't actually what the users wanted. So I think the first step is to really get everyone together and see, where's the biggest win for everyone with the least resources.
Absolutely. I know some people have talked about in the Reddit, especially. There's one of the kind of like questions about licensing the operating system. We know that the light phone is a small device, but some people would like to see it in a bigger format. I don't know if you guys have ever talked about that.
Not necessarily licensing, but some of the survey questions definitely spoke to the form factor, and I think it's something we've always been interested in. We always say, like, one thing we didn't like about the smartphone is it tries to be a one size fits all for everyone and everything, and that phones need to be more specific to different users' needs and preferences. So I think it only makes sense that eventually we would create models of the light phone, whether that's a different type of screen and still using the same light OS and ethos, or maybe a larger phone that's maybe able to have a bigger battery or more antennas and things like that, but still obviously a light phone and the same light OS. And so we've done some experiments in that regard. And
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens in the future. Yeah, no, and I understand. I mean, everybody has a preference for form factor, but I think one thing that I've always said and that I maintain saying is that it's a continually evolving device. It just continuously getting better and better, and that's something that I love because I personally appreciate the form factor. Right, it's small, it's out of sight, you don't really feel it that it's on it, so it's conducive towards that lifestyle change. But I do understand people that want a larger battery. They want it to work for weeks and weeks on, and it's just like, well, sometimes that cannot be done with a small device with a 950 milliamp hour battery.
Yeah, and I think even like I talk to a lot of people that are interested, but maybe above 50, above 60 years old, and the small screen is just almost prohibitive. And we could obviously make the font larger, but it's just such a small screen that then you're going to start getting less than 20 words on a page and things like that. It just start to be less practical. So I think it opens up more possible people to go light, and that's really exciting.
I never heard of this one, but Dylan has a question on this. I don't think it's a bug. I just think it's the way that it works. But when you unlock the phone twice, so he hits the unlock button, then enters the passcode, and then hits the button again. So I guess what they're referring to is like they hit the circle, right? And then like they get the passcode in here, and then they don't get into their phone right away.
That very well may be an oversight. I'm going to have to play with it to understand better, but that's a good point, and definitely something we could work on. Whether you press the toolbox button to go straight to the toolbox or the circle to go straight to the phone. That's a great point. I don't personally use a passcode on my device.
Yeah.
So I know I've done a lot of testing with it. I can't recall off the top.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think that's what they're meaning. You press the phone, you put the passcode, and then you have to press it again. And I think he sees it as a bug, but it's just like that's just not how the phone is working. But maybe it is a bug. Maybe it's something different that they're talking about. A little bit more on the technical. This question comes a lot. But Bluetooth connectivity with the car audio system. Are there any improvements on the pipeline?
Yeah, we definitely. Bluetooth is one of these. It's almost an umbrella bucket of improvements. Compatibility issues we've seen for sure, especially with cars more so than headphones, but also ability to connect to multiple different devices easily. We've seen some issues where you might have to manually disconnect from one device to get another device to easily connect. So I think, general compatibility, better optimization for being able to handle connecting to multiple devices throughout the day, switching between those devices, as well as Bluetooth controls, which right now there's no mechanism for controlling from Bluetooth headphones the phone itself. And I can't say right now that we can guarantee vast improvements or that all these things will be possible. They should all be possible, but until someone dives into that, we won't know for sure. But that's, one bucket that one of our developers is queued to dive into in the near term.
Yeah. There are two questions that come from the Reddit that kind of summarize all of the Reddit questions that people have. And the first one is any plans of like actually having like not a lock screen, but like a static screen, like, like when it's sleeping, you can put maybe pictures or you can put the notifications there. Or somebody even mentioned like, kind of like maybe creating an image, because e-ink screens can just showcase that without being woken up, like on a Kindle, like how the Kindle does it. So that's one, and the second one is a little bit of the frustration when you're typing a message and you may hit the send button. Is there any kind of thoughts on that and what you guys are doing with it?
The first one, I know we did a bunch of investigations pre-launch. I'm not exactly sure the exact technical issue, but I know with Android, it was trickier than we thought to change that screen when it's fully asleep. There may be ways we can, because of the e-ink screen, show the notification screen somehow, but keep the phone in a essentially sleep form. But it may have some battery impact because the phone's not technically asleep or something. So there may be some things we can do, but I believe the way that the OS is built on top of the Android in our kind of way, which is a little bit unique for a phone, so to speak. I think there were some issues with what we're capable of doing there. And it may be possible to expand that, but it would require working with the ODM partner or manufacturing partner who really, does the kind of deep Android to all the hardware connections. So it may be a much longer process than it seems.
Yeah, no. And I know that from my testing, just taking the light phone down, when I tore it down, and I had everything, I noticed that when I was playing with the e-ink panel, it kind of recalls some of the sensitivity sensors as well. So there's, of course, some hardware integration in there.
And then the second question, I'm sorry.
No problem. The second question was more on like the texting. Sometimes people may.
Oh, the send button.
Yeah.
Kai and I have looked at a lot of different iterations on where we could move the send button. I think it's probably something I would like to almost poll about, because, one fear I have is if I move it, people who have been using the phone for 2 years, maybe some people are going to be annoyed that they've gotten used to the send button there. It doesn't necessarily seem like something we want as a setting. So I would say, it's on our mind and it's something we're aware of. I'm not sure if it's something, I can't tell how many people actually want that change or not just yet. But, it's actually a fairly simple change. We do have some small keyboard features. They're not, super high, but they actually were quite high on the survey, which is like auto period.
Like double space
auto period, caps lock, and then one other one we might explore is return key. As well. And I should mention, we did start actually on spell check as well.
Okay. Yeah, and I know you guys are working on creating one of the users suggested maybe a pop-up that says, do you want to send this message? Kind of like an intermediary step to kind of prevent that automatic send.
That kind of setting could be okay, leaving it to personal preference. And we're definitely open. I can send some of the mocks of where we've tried the send button. Maybe I could post them on the Reddit or the Discord somehow and see what people's opinions are on that.
Absolutely. And again, guys, join the Reddit, join the Discord if you want to see more like updates. These live streams are like the long term kind of a thing. We do maybe one or twice a year. I think we've been doing for the past 2 years. And it's been good to talk to you, Joe. So thank you for taking the time.
We've been considering the possibility of, I hear from users, which is incredibly humbling, that they want to support in some, monthly financial way of like maybe a Patreon or a Substack where we could, it'd be more of a donation than, us guaranteeing that be valuable, but like where we could share mocks and different things for those that are super interested, and as a way to get some more user feedback. But it
Right.
hasn't been a priority at this
Yeah.
time.
And I know that, well, you guys definitely appreciate anytime that somebody signs up for the plan, as you mentioned, because that creates more revenue stream, right? Consistent. Hey, we're gonna get a little bit from each user. So there's a lot of people saying, hey, they want a larger phone, larger light phone with e-ink screen, same OS. Love for a larger phone. And Donald also talks about 5G. So what can you tell us about 5G? I
I
don't
mean,
think that's an
I'd
add-on.
say we're kind of constantly surveying, but it doesn't seem like there's any immediate pressing need for an upgraded model that includes 5G. I do think if we were to make another model of the light phone, we're definitely going to consider it in trying to, make whatever phone is have as long of a life as possible. But we're pretty confident from talking to a variety of different carriers around the world that 4G is here to stay for the well foreseeable future.
Yeah, and
And
that's what
we
I've heard.
can't yet see any significant advantage. I'm sure maybe the hotspot tool might be able to perhaps perform quicker with the 5G, but other than that, there's not really anything else on the light phone that would seriously benefit from it. But making the current phone 5G wouldn't really be possible without completely remaking the phone, recertifying, and
Right.
going through the entire process almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's awesome to know. I know a lot of people have talked about the ebook, and you said that displaying something, right? Like like an article that you could read for later, loading it up. Have you guys thought about? And I think Kai, there was an article on fulfill something, right? I think there was an article about it. I don't remember if I'm quoting the right fulfill right, yeah, fulfill right, where Kai had an interview. I'll put it on the chat for everybody to read, and he mentioned the possibility of displaying QR codes, maybe for people that need to showcase information, or now that some things are going digital, or maybe you can load up the menu or your favorite restaurant before, right? Like or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I wouldn't take any of that as concrete things. I think what he's referring to, and we actually had it as a question on our survey, I call it more like tickets in my head, but
Yeah.
the idea being that you would on the dashboard be able to load up QR codes. Being that the light phone doesn't have a camera, it's never going to be able to read a QR code. And
Mhm.
obviously, we don't want to open up an internet browser to being able to do any of that. So that's not necessarily on our mind. And actually, the tickets thing was voted quite low on the survey. So I would say it's probably not in our near-term future. But the idea was that whether it's a train ticket or a concert ticket, if you had a QR code, you'd be able to upload that to the dashboard and have a display on the phone. But there's a lot of concerns I have initially, just thinking out loud, of compatibility and how universal that would be, and if it would be accepted, especially when it comes to like a COVID vaccine pass or something like that. I can see someone being like, "What the heck is that?" If you showed them it on the light phone. So I wouldn't say that's something that's on our near term, but we're open ears, and I think something like that is possible, for
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely. I do see a lot of people that say, "Hey, I love to volunteer. I love to help out." I think there was even somebody that had like some JavaScript experience, and I know, that. So here, Charles, that's why I mentioned he's a JS dev. So like, if people want to help out, like with their time or anything, where should they inquire about that if they're interested in that?
I mean, it's incredibly humbling. Thank you. But I'm not exactly sure how we would best take advantage of that offer at
Mhm.
this time. I think when it comes to the development side, we just onboarded a new developer at the beginning of December, and it takes a few months to really get them integrated into every aspect of all the pieces of software that we have, from the dashboard to the website, the
Mhm.
APIs, the phone itself, the interface. So it's hard to imagine that someone would be able to just jump in and immediately add value without us needing to really help
Right.
uplift. And I think that's where we see the open source and SDK community, or whatever we want to call it, being a potential vessel for that, where people can kind of share knowledge amongst each others and really elevate that and hopefully, make some tangible progress. But, in the immediate short term, as generous as it is, it's hard to imagine how we might be able to really facilitate that. I think, spreading the word about the light phone is the best thing that
Mhm.
we have right now. I think it's so amazing that so many of the people that buy the light phone reference in their emails with us, like, so and so showed me their phone, my friend had it, or, and that's so cool that so much of our ongoing sales are from existing users.
Yeah. I know from personal experience. I just had one of my coworker, my main coworker. He looked at it. He was like, "It makes sense. I'm gonna get a new phone number. I'm gonna use the light phone." And he's like, "I got it," And I'm like, "Perfect, good." It's like you are now kind of like integrated in the system, and he loves it. He still has, of course, like the smart things because he needs to do work, but he's like for personal. Or right now, I think he's going on a vacation today, and he's like, only one thing, no need to take my smartphone, just just chill in and having that. So that's exciting. A couple of the last questions, as we're drawing towards the end of the live stream, guys. We've been here for 46 minutes. We usually go for an hour and talk about different things, but talking about organization for the music tool, by artist, album, playlists. I know right now it's very kind of like basic, so do you know of any, what can you share with us about the future of that?
Uh, I would say, it's something on our radar, but as it stands, I think with the 1 GB limit for music, it seems a little bit maybe overkill at this time to add all of that sort of sorting features when there's only really so many songs that are available on the device.
Mhm.
It's obviously possible, but, being such a small screen and interface with such a limited library, like, I'm not sure how how much value that would really add to the larger users at this time. I think if we're able to say, I can upload 10 gigabytes of music to my dashboard and maybe stream from that and have a much larger
Mhm.
library, even though the phone has its limited internal capacity. If I was able to have a much larger library, I think that would become a crucial aspect. So in my mind, I think it kind of feels like something that would go along with a larger library of music.
Perfect. That's
But
good to know.
we could
Guys, I
definitely
just,
consider it, you know,
yeah,
without a bigger library. But I think for now, we've heard it from a few people, but it's been a relatively less requested feature, I think.
right. Perfect. For everyone who's watching, just put a link in the chat, and also in other places if you want to win. Well, I always do giveaways. So every time we do one of these, I do a light phone giveaway. So there's a light phone in there that will be yours if you win. Only one can do
Oh,
tons of
nice. I
them.
didn't know that.
So yeah, yeah. Usually every time I do one of these, I'm giving away light phone and a bunch of all of the other things that I have reviewed for the channel. Just so people can start their journey on a free way, essentially. But if you want to win a light phone, make sure to go into the link that I just posted in the form there. Finally, I switched from Google Forms to something more, let's say, I don't know, private or something like that. But yeah, and I'll ship it anywhere. So even if you don't have the compatibility, you will be the first one to test. I think the last one, I shipped it to France. Yeah, I think somebody from France, they want it, but that one's compatible, so they made it work. But yeah, Joe, are there any things that you guys have kind of like heard from the community, or something that you has gotten you excited? That the community has done, or something that you have worked with.
I don't know if anyone's been able to check out yet. It kind of exists right now on a Medium blog, and we share them on our Twitter and Instagram feeds, ironically. But we've been doing a series of interviews with users. and we've actually done more interviews than are currently published, and I think that's been one of the best aspects of this entire project, is to hear from people who've been using the phone for months or years at this point, and to learn how it's really impacted them is it makes this whole up and downs of trying to pull this project off completely worth it. And so that's been, for me personally, one of the best things. And to meet these users, and they're so cool. It's it really feels like, wow, we're doing something. Because I think some days, if I'm just tracking a bug or tracking this bug and dealing with support and difficult things, it's like it feels like you're failing, and it's so amazing to see the positive side as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Yeah, so I put the links on the chat on the sidebar for everybody to see. So you see right there, the link for Medium and the link for Instagram. So if you want to check them out, interviews are great. I think they showcase the variety of ranges of people that use the light phone and how they use it, because there's some people. One thing that I wanted to say is for Vladimir, thank you for the donation. I saw that you sent a donation earlier, so thanks for that. Anything that helps, guys, so thank you for the support. Joe, I don't have any extra questions. I think we kind of went over pretty much everything that the people did on the Reddit and on here. So if anybody has any extra questions, please.
Yeah, I don't know if I can see the chat to see the questions, but happy to answer some more.
If you go into, I don't know if you can see towards the right, there's like a little bubble. Shift C if you press.
I now see the chat.
Yeah. So there it is. Yeah, so I think there's a couple feature requests in there, there's other stuff, right? I think somebody said to the ability to call or text a number that is texted to me via one tap. So I guess highlighting something like it does on other devices, I guess. It's kind of like feature requests, things like that.
I mean, for things within texting thread, recognizing phone numbers and being able to import contacts that are, if someone on an iPhone sends you a contact right now, you can't receive it. So I think, being able to, if someone texts you a phone number, to have that as a link that you might be able to click and call or text, if that's what they're referring to, that's definitely, something we'd love to see as well.
Perfect. That's good to know. And I mean, we're really excited. C. Smith, I think this is one of the last questions that I see. Blake, he asked how many light phones have been sold so far. I think you've answered that before.
Yeah, it's not something we really can talk about publicly at this point, but it's, we're incredibly humbled by the number. It's definitely in the tens of thousands. But yeah, for a variety of reasons, we can't really share the exact number.
Yeah, we understand that. So one more question is, how durable is it? Does it withstand drops well? Not sure if it has been covered, but C. Smith asked a question. He's considering buying one. Do you recommend the case? Because
I mean, I would almost refer the durability question to others as to, it's a hard kind of qualitative question in terms of durability. I'd say it's as delicate as smartphones can be, in the sense that it is glass on the front. The back casing is plastic, which is prone to potentially chipping if you drop it from enough height. But the phone itself has passed a lot of the sort of rigorous tests that a lot of phones go through, and that it can withstand the hardware internals a pretty decent amount. It's not waterproof. It's IPX3, so in the scheme of waterproofing, that's quite low. It's just a little bit of water resistance. I mean, I've heard stories of it going through a wash and surviving. I wouldn't recommend that by any means. The protective silicone case and the screen protector are definitely helpful. I don't personally use them, but I know a lot of users do, and Kaiwei does himself.
I do use them. So I mean, from someone who I remember, what was it, mid 2020, right? I think I broke my screen. Very funny. It was funny because I was recording a video. I still did not have my camera, so I didn't have a tripod and everything and all the things that you see I
Your
have here.
multitasking hands.
Yeah, I was multitasking literally because I had this microphone. I was recording with this microphone on top, and I had my iPad. I was recording with this iPad actually, so I had it on top, and like because it's kind of shaky or whatever, I was like I dropped it, and this corner of the iPad hit the light phone screen, and it wasn't
Oof.
from a very big distance, like it was just kind of like overhead,
Right.
but
The
it just went
weight and being
directly.
directly.
Yeah. And at the time there wasn't a screen protector, so it just literally went through. But yeah, I mean, again, that I personally say get the case and the screen protector. It's an investment that you don't want to have to, you know, um, it's you don't want to damage it. And I know you guys work with people and have worked with me as well. Like I remember you guys sent me a refurbished one, right? At that time, I know you guys work with that, and kind of like a reduced way
And
for people to get
as I
that.
mentioned earlier, like we are really working on this repair program and being able to one-to-one repair someone's screen. How timely we could get that shipment, replace the screen, and send it back is what we're working out the logistics of. But we want to make the phone as long lasting as possible. And I think something we learned from our sustainability report was that repairability is one of the easiest ways to improve the life and keep the phones from the landfill. So I think going into a future model, that's something I'm very personally encouraged by, trying to make sure this phone, from the battery being replaceable or other components. And I think Fairphone is really inspiring in that capacity.
Yeah. And I know you guys have talked about that in the past. We talked about the battery not being replaceable right now, but maybe in the future, which kind of goes into I think this question ties it up really nicely for everything that we talked today. From Adam, he says, will you ever consider the Light Phone 2 done? Is there a point where you'll be satisfied with it, or will be evolving for the rest of its lifespan?
I mean, I can't say there's a point the Light Phone will be done as a phone. There may be a point that the Light Phone 2 is extinct when 4G goes extinct, but hopefully by that time there's an alternative Light Phone. And I think, even if we're relatively content with the features, I think there's perpetual upgrades to be made, and stability is always a thing, and optimization. And I think there's probably an infinite roadmap in that regard, of things we can continue to improve, and we can make more niche tools, maybe something like a metronome or a guitar tuner that only a few percentage of our users would want. I'm just ripping off things I would use, but I think there's a lot of utility-based tools that can still be created, whether that's us or through an SDK. And I think other form factors for the phone would be really interesting. More collaborations and maybe other products that aren't a phone as well too.
Yeah. And I know, as you have said before, you're here to stay, right? Like, you're planning to stay and to make it an evolving device. And it's been 2 years and a little bit now since the first users kind of started getting it, right?
The Light Phone 2, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. Light Phone 1, 2016, 2017, right?
Kai and I met in 2014. We did our Kickstarter in 2015, started shipping January 2017. So just into January, the original Light Phone. And then it was September 2019 when we started shipping the Light Phone 2.
Yep. I know. I remember I met with the friend that actually bought it from the Kickstarter and then sold it to me. Because he now lives in Denver, so we both ended up in Denver. So we meet, every so often. And he's like, "Oh, well, that's the one, right?" Yep, that's the one. But it's been exciting, Joe. Thank you very much for covering a couple of the questions from the community and kind of like looking into the future. I know maybe in the future, once you guys have developed more things, we'll have another chat.
Definitely.
And of course,
Always down to do this.
yeah, if I'm ever in New York again, we'll go eat pizza again. But thanks everyone for watching. Thank you for being here. And if you have any questions or you want to stay tuned, make sure to go into Reddit, make sure to go into Discord, email, right, Joe? Always.
I mean, our support email we definitely do a good job of classifying everything, even if it's the 100th time we've heard for a feature request. We keep note of it, and there's definitely things we hear about that we aren't going to do for whatever reason, that maybe aren't aligned with the ethos or aren't technically possible for whatever reason, but the feedback is still valuable to us.
Yeah. Perfect.
And, it means so much that people are willing to participate. And I think even when it came to the music bug last week, it was so inspiring that people were willing to, send me videos of the examples, and, that really helped us speed up the process. I know we talked a lot about the SDK. One thing we've been talking a lot about is expanding our beta testing, because right now it's pretty limited to our internal team. And so none of us were able to experience the music bug, but obviously there was a bug. And so hopefully by getting larger beta groups in the future, we might be able to notice some of those before it ships to the larger audience. It's going to take some work for us to create that deployment channels. So when that might be a possibility is still kind of TBD. We're kind of just heads down trying to get through these next couple of features. But I think that's something else we'd love to improve ongoing.
Yeah. We have some thank you for the community. So there you go.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. And we're excited to just continue seeing everything. But thanks a lot, Joe. Thanks everyone for coming in, and we'll let you know when it's the next time. So
yeah,
to you.
And I'll try to get Kaiway to join next time too.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. Alrighty.
Bye.